Hello and welcome, everyone. I am Jacqueline Burbage here with the beautiful Amalia Maria Lee. This is part two of our free offering titled The Art of Self-Trust. Most of you who are on now saw or were live last week, and for those who will watch both replays, they're very different, so we hope you'll make the time to watch both. I just wanted to say hello and let you know about the replays, and we will send the replays out from tonight as well. And then next is going to be Amalia, and we're just going to get right into it. And we're so
Yeah,
excited that you're here.
we are going to get right into it. We did a little bit of introduction in part one. So if you're like, who are these people? You can find out a little bit more in part one or go to our Instagram. We decided to do this offering because we wanted to create a little window into the awareness that Jacqueline and I build our work around and our lives around, so that people who are considering joining us in retreat in Costa Rica this November can have a little taste. It's not like we're going to do this practice there, but maybe you can get to know our point of view and a little bit of the medicine that we would be receiving in retreat. So that is a sacred soma in Costa Rica on November 15 to 21. And right now we are offering $300 off your investment, and that offer ends this week, the end of this week. So if you guys are like, "Hey, do it." Okay. And so moving on to this subject, the art of self-trust. This second part is going to be a little bit more discussion than practice, because we really want to give the practice a framework. And the idea is that first, the part one was that we want to kind of understand how we are inhabiting our bodies, because we need to be able to perceive the signals from our body in order to interpret them. Like, how can we interpret the signals if we're not even in touch with them? So, and I just want to say that as we move into this theme now that we're going to be exploring, which is how do we explore the edges, the intensity of life in a more constructive and illuminating sort of way. The first thing that I want to say is that we cannot really do that very well without foundations. So it's all well and good for us, Jacqueline and I, to talk about stuff like capacity and like expression and all these things, right? Which we are going to touch on today. But I just want to speak it that we cannot expect our physical body to be able to hold these experiences or for our signals to be clear if we are not well resourced, if we don't know our body well enough to be giving it its basic animal needs. So I just want to say that as this is the foundation. Like, if we're going straight into like big trauma releases, blah, but like you're not sleeping well, you're not eating well, you're not, you're scrolling at night, all these things, then what that's going to feel like is more stress to your system, not an opportunity to process and resolve. So I just wanted to lay that as the foundation. Those are things that you can work on with Jacqueline and I, that's like our wheelhouse. This is what I would call maybe step 3. Step 1 is resourcing. Step 2 is reading and hearing the signals and like adjusting, building relationship. And then here is step 3, just a little taste of it. Okay, now we've been reading and hearing our signals, and we're going to get more skillful and adept at being at the edge and not being terrified of it and not trying to get away from it. So I'm going to start this with a little bit more of a concrete story that I think that I shared with Gia today, and I shared in my emails. So if you've already heard it, apologies, but I think that that's the nature of stories, is that we need to hear them over and over and over for the meaning to start to really reveal itself. So here's my story. I was recently, about a month ago, experiencing anxiety, and it was kind of persistent. It wasn't like a day of anxiety. It was like, it's kind of like a couple weeks of anxiety. And of course, the Instagram perimenopause warriors were in my head, like, oh, it's your hormones. And and then I was, thinking about how this signal in my body would have sent me straight to fixing it in the past. You don't want to feel this. This is bad. This is not enlightened. You got to breathe it away. You got to go do 3 hours of yoga. And I was like, okay, let me practice what I preach here. And instead of making it go away, I really sat in relationship with it. I talked about it. I talked about my feelings and my feelings of inadequacy and irrelevance and self-righteousness and all these like kind of like shadow aspects of myself that were coming through this anxiety. And it was, you know, just kind of illuminating, oh, there's places here where I'm expressing in my life that is not quite aligned for the life that wants to be lived through me. Like my evolution is taking me somewhere else, and I'm starting to feel this feeling. And so I sat with it for a while. I didn't make it go away. And I bet that it lasted a little bit longer than if I had just been like, whew, got to do my breath work, got to get back on top of my morning routine. I could have probably made the feeling go away, but I wouldn't have gotten the relationship, the clarity, the inspiration that I got had I rushed to solving that problem and making that feeling go away. So I really I just steeped in it. I asked it questions. I wrote about it. I spoke about it. I shared with my husband. I shared with my girlfriend. And I, you know, like gave myself space to feel it. I did less, you know, like in the evening hours, like that was social because I just didn't feel like it. And instead of it distracting myself, I was like, okay, I'm just going to do me for a while. On the other side of that, it was like, oh, I got a realization and an idea. Ooh, and then that one led to the next, and then that one led to the next. And I went from this like very tense kind of frictiony feeling to like, oh, things opened up. And I started to really see how I could recreate the framework that I was working within in order for it to feel more aligned. And that's what that anxiety was for. It was pointing me in that direction. It was actually inspiration, but it was coming out in discomfort. And that is what a lot of our discomfort is. Like, I'm going to go somewhere else. Like, there's a creep that's just staring at you, and your body is like, ooh, no. You know, and so you freeze, you don't look in that direction, you move, you know, a little further away from that person. Those are things to like put distance between us and that feeling. But what if we could be like, ah, fuck off? What if we could do the thing that our body is really calling us to do, right? And, you know, just like grief, you know, oh, you just kind of don't want to cry too much. You only have like a day or two off work, and then we got to right back into it, right? So this idea that our body and our ancestry or our evolution has these certain expectations of us when we're feeling a certain way. And then we have this new way that we've been doing it, like regulation, where the understanding is that we need to get to calm as soon as possible. We need to get to productive as soon as possible. And so that imperative overrides the relationship that we are being called to with this intensity. Same even just with like overwhelm, like, okay, there's so much happening, so much change, so many to-dos, right? So we can like breathe through that. Or if it's a persistent feeling, we can really start to ask what it is asking of us. What kind of change or what kind of relationship are we needing when we're constantly feeling this discomfort or intensity in our body mind? So I would like to take us through a little journey of what does that look like? Because this maybe makes sense, but then how does that apply to life? So I want to be really clear about how this can apply to life. First of all, when we do these practices that we're going to do, it's going to be a short amount of practice because, as I said, I want to build a lot of context. But the practices are inspired by my own intuition, what I know about the nervous system, what I know about our ancestry, what I know about our human needs and conditions just generally. And these practices are inspired by how we have always dealt with this stuff up until recently. And there is a wisdom to these matriarchal and tribal societies that have always integrated processing into daily life. So it's not about trauma processing. It's not about just like, oh, you have a bad thing and then you take care of business necessarily. It's really more like, this is just what we do in rites of passage and ceremony and daily life and ritual, that these sorts of behaviors are a part of daily life. And that just gives us this psychic hygiene, or this opportunity to resolve in our body regularly, instead of thinking of it as an answer to the problem. So that's number one, right? Like I was talking about what I was doing in my anxious moments, but I think I was able to do that and be with it because I do that daily when I'm not feeling anxious, or, just like naturally, I just have a process of being with my body. And that's why I could be with my anxiety. And so that's where that part one comes in, where we were talking about how we're inhabiting and noticing our body and how we're standing and how we're breathing, because we're starting to build this relationship so that when something big comes, we are more in touch with ourselves. We feel more safe in our vessel. And therefore we can decide like, okay, I'm going to just get comfortable. We're going to ride this ride together, So the three energies we're going to explore today are three. There's so many ways that we can experience intensity. We talked about grief and rage and overwhelm. And there's also the intensity of our desire or wanting, or, like just this, even this like kind of off limits lasciviousness that we're not supposed to touch, like if we're good women. But Clarissa Pinkola Estes calls these the vivid energies. We don't want to compress our vivid energies, whether it's like lascivious or scary or ugly or just destructive, even, because destruction is what makes room for creation. And so we have to allow ourselves to be destructive, lascivious, crazy, all the things, because that is all part of our wholeness and our humanness. And so I think that this time of like worshiping the guru who just sits still and is quiet and has no reactions, I think it's giving way to a much more embodied, rooted, like human experience. And that's what we're going to explore. So the first energy we're going to explore is our wanting, our basically connection. So connection through love and touch, connection through pleasure, connection to self or other, but just sort of the idea that we can go there, we can want, it's allowed. And the reason why I'm starting there is because oxytocin is our primary neuromodulator as a woman for our nervous system. So our connection hormone is what's governing our awareness and our decisions. And oxytocin is also what mobilizes sacred rage or maternal rage in a woman. So when we think about like, oh, the same thing that is helping us connect with ourselves and with others, with touch, with pleasure, that's oxytocin, but so is, rah, mama bear. That's also oxytocin. And so what we see is that once we establish connection, inherently that will sometimes lend itself to protection, and that's appropriate. We're going to want to puff up sometimes, and we should be able to go there. And so we might have to practice it. And if we are working in a framework in life in which we can feel connection, we can access it with ourselves and others, we can step up and step into mama bear when we need to, we can activate our protection and we're heard and we are hearing ourselves, then we can move into expression more easily. And this energy is like the wild woman, the eccentric, the artist, the like woman who doesn't care what you think because she's doing you, right? She's dancing like no one's watching. And so there's this arc that we're going to go through where we move our bodies and our energy and our awareness according to that arc. Okay. You guys have any questions before we actually get into the body stuff, the movement stuff? This is not going to be strenuous. This is going to be just like an experiential process. We're good? Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask you to stand. However, if sitting like I'm not a fan of like you can do whatever you want. I do want to give you an actual framework. Um, my point is if you are sitting, you can do all of it. If you're on your hands and knees, you can do all of it. So I'm going to stand and otherwise find the version of what I'm doing in your most comfortable position because it's available in all of those. Okay. All right, so if you and I were together, we would be starting to play some kind of sexy, get in your body music. So you're welcome to put that music on. You're welcome to shut the door, make yourself a kind of sacred space. We're going to just take a minute to arrive in your body and maybe touch a little bit on what we talked about in part one, which is like, how can we stand in a very supported way where we're not kind of sinking, you know, this sometimes is how people like relax and get embodied. And this is not really very supportive to our nervous system. It doesn't communicate safety. It communicates collapse. So we're going to bring the booty back, breathe into the whole rib cage, and feel your internal support as you arrive into your body. So the first energy that we're talking about here is this connection energy that starts off kind of warm and fuzzy, but it can go into these really wild and intense places that sometimes feel off limits culturally. However, if you are not practiced at touching your body and moaning and rolling your hips, and if you're not practiced at that, that can feel really weird and uncomfortable. And that's not the point here. So we're going to go where it is natural for you. Right now, I'm going to ask you to begin to move and touch yourself in a way that feels like you are honestly expressing desire and connection to self and how you may move in connection with a lover. But if this is like, I am not this girl, okay, I kind of feel rigid when somebody tells me to move sexy. I don't wanna. Then you keep your hands on your body and you start de-armoring. You start asking permission. May I touch you? And see how that permission feels. And then maybe just starting with one movement that feels like a little bit of an edge. This is not my wheelhouse. I'm not a girl who rolls my hips, but I'm going to try to go from that permission, noticing the body says yes, to just rolling your hips. So I'm doing that kind of level 1 and 2, but you can be like level 7 or 8 and just moaning and touching and tickling. And this is, I want you to go to an edge that feels a little bit out of your comfort zone. Okay. So if you're like, yeah, I'm good doing this, but like making a sound like, oh, is weird. I would never do that in public. Do that. Practice that. Practice opening your throat. If you are a girl who just doesn't like to dance and doesn't really look at yourself naked in the mirror and it's just a little bit more contracting, start with that permission. Start with that noticing intrinsic support, and then go to, once your body feels like it's softened to a yes, you're going to go to just rolling your hips in a circle. And just, you can do that the entire time. If you want to graduate to touching that doesn't feel quite sexual, you can just touch your arms and your collarbone and your legs. And if you feel like this, I know how to do, then challenge yourself and like get on the floor and make your sounds. And I'm going to move my computer, and you can get on your hands and knees and do a little dancing lion. I always used to call this the yogi stripper move. You can roll around. And remember that sound is a big part of this. So sound, movement, touch. Think of Let's say you're with the women of your tribe, you're in the red tent, you're away from the village, it's all women, and you guys are practicing channeling this energy. And this is requiring your imagination, right? It's not like there's any one lineage I'm referring to. It's just like, what would they do? What sounds would they make? Would they be around a fire? What movements, what dance? Just kind of lean into that in your imagination, even if you're not doing anything wild with your body. And you can start to slowly, maybe touch yourself in a more intimate way and even edge your way into like dirty, lascivious, anything that feels off limits, anything that would make you feel embarrassed or shameful if you were being observed. See if you can go there, just really, I'm wearing my sexiest pants for you guys. And I want you to try and maybe even coming into a little bit of a performance where you're like, oh, I'm putting myself out there, right? And I'm really inhabiting my siren. Ah, you can meow, you can purr, you can do whatever you want that feels like you are opening up to this vivid energy of lascivious sexual pleasure wanting, just that edge of yourself. Ah. Notice when you do something a bit cringy, that little thing that tightens up in your body, have a little conversation with it like, oh, babe, you feel that way because you were made to feel that way. That's not yours, right? You can so open up to this pleasure, this receiving, this wanting. How dare you want? Dare to want, right? Just dare to move into those edges. And this is not just about sexual pleasure. This is about our desire, really owning our desire in all areas of our life. Not the people pleaser, not, the stay in your lane girl, but the like, whoa, that girl. That girl who gets what she wants because she knows how to ask. Mm. What does she feel like? What does she move like? And just go to your edge. It is not about mirroring me. Because if you go way past your edge, that's not going to be for you. That's going to be a performance for me. So just remember to do this for you, to keep tuning into your body as you touch yourself, as you make sound, as you move in ways that make you feel kind of animalistic and in touch with that part of you. And feel as though you are starting to come to a moment of neutrality. Like you're kind of feeling like, oh, I went into this, I moved around, I explored, and it's going from curious to sort of maybe getting a little bit less interesting, or maybe you're like, girl, I got to stay here the whole time. I don't care what you're going to talk about next. So listen to your body. But we are transitioning, so let's find a little signal in your body, like a window of okay, I feel a little satisfied, feel like I got to touch that experience, feel like I can come back to neutral in my body mind. Now, this is also how we process naturally, like when you have a big cry or you have a big burst of anger, naturally we'll come back to like a sort of spiral back into this more neutral feeling. And that doesn't mean that you're done expressing that, and then the energy will surge again and you'll have this another big cry or a big scream, and then and the energy will kind of fade and the body will recover. And that's the spiral that naturally happens as we move through these more intense energies. So right now we're just like spiraling back to a baseline. What is the baseline? That's what we talked about in part 1. What is the baseline? Where is the breath? Where are the bones? How do I come back home? And the thing is that even those edges are home, but we know we're going to go there, we're going to come back. We're going to go there, we're going to come back. Okay, so Now we're starting to think about like, oh, we are an embodied woman. We have babies, let's say. We're in this tribe and we know how to be in our body and we express and connect every day and we have children, or whether they're our children or they're the tribe's children, we have this immense sense of responsibility to protect these children. And that's just to inspire that like raw, that mama bear in you. It's not the only thing that would inspire it, but start to feel like, okay, what does it feel like when you got to puff up, when you got to run in front of that galloping horse or that bus to scoop up the baby, or you got to run in front of that, angry dude who's about to over discipline one of the kids. So you're starting to feel this, right? And one of the things, we're going to stand back up, or at least I am, one of the things that I really like to do to start to get into this mindset is creating rhythm. So we're going to stomp and do a little hit. You can do a hit with your closed fist on your chest. And know that as you stomp harder, there's going to be a little bit more stimulus, right? And then somebody needs to get checked, right? So we're starting to feel that build. And I'm going to do it, and then you can follow me. We're going to and practice making your bug eyes, your mouth angry, and get ugly. Okay, so we're going to do that in between our rhythm. So you can do this. You can do this, up and down. And then we're going to just see that one of the children is being threatened. What do you do? And you have no fear that they think you're crazy or ugly or anything else, because that is what is protecting the crazy and the angry. And we're going to go back and get into that big energy, and maybe those slaps get a little bit harder. We're really just bringing this awareness into our body, this energy into our body, because we can hold it. Oh, yeah, I feel it. Think about some of these people that we've been hearing about in the news this year that deserve this, okay? And just give it to them right now. Yes. And then we come back into ourselves. We come back into ourselves. We come back to rhythm. We come back to the earth beneath our feet. We come back to our rhythmic breath, even if it's big and a little bit labored. We're starting to feel that home in our body, even in this intensity. And then we're going to do it again. And then back. Spiral back inward. Trust that building energy, that's like kind of tingle, pins and needles at the surface of your skin, the tightness in your jaw. We're going to do one more like that. Yeah, okay. So I want you to do the rhythm a little bit softer. Okay, so what happens if you really got to puff up? You get that surge of adrenaline, and it makes you 10 times as strong and brave. And then in the aftermath, oh man, your body is vibrating, you feel shaky, you feel like, should I have done that? Do you feel like, does anyone love me anymore? Right? Okay, so we get into our body, we come home here first. What does that mean for you? We can shake, we can kind of move that adrenaline through, flicking the wrists, breathing a little bit more, shaking the shoulders. Oh, okay, that's the adrenaline that we're letting process through. Oh. And then there's that moment where you feel like, okay, the spike is gone, and now I need that home feeling. And remember that the first step is home in ourselves, because it's very hard to feel at home anywhere else or with anyone else if we don't have this first, but it is not the last step. So we get here, and then we go to our trusted sister. And then we go to our trusted, husband or father. And we say, I need to be held. I just did a big amount of holding and protection, and now I need that, because we don't just need ourselves, we need our community. And being able to be in touch with ourselves will give us this wisdom and bravery to reach out for connection when we need it. And that is really where the resolution lies. And okay, that happened. And so we're starting to feel a little bit lighter. So just move like you're feeling lighter. Oh, okay. You know what? It feels really good to be able to want and get and speak your truth and protect the innocent and protect what's sacred. And wow, that feels empowering in my body. I'm starting to feel like I can really trust what's moving through me. And that makes us a little difficult to control. It makes us eccentric, meaning we orbit around a different center than maybe the mainstream. And that is what we're going for, because that center is really weird. We need our own. So what does it feel like now? We're going to just sort of imagine that we're going to jump, or you can flat foot and shake. We're going to imagine that we have like that banger on that you just love to dance to. Okay. And I want you to do like the crazy, I don't care, whip your hair back and forth, like jack it up. Dance like no one's watching, or like everyone's watching and you could give a fuck less. Okay, so I really want you to get a little bit wild and silly. And I also want you to imagine that wild-haired, crazy dress, funny sunglasses, too much jewelry lady that's inside of you. That's just like, I don't care, man. This is my center. I love to express. I love to make art. I like to tell people where to shove it when they need to hear it. And you just play, play and move that energy through the body so that when you are at the party, that you're dancing just like this because you want to, because it feels good, and because you don't care, because your center is in here, in your community, in your body, in your family, not in someone's judgment of you or what's cool. So we're just going to dance a little bit more like a crazy lady. Make sounds, giggle, maybe allow yourself to explore. Maybe there's a landscape in your mind that you want to paint. Maybe there's poetry that is starting to move through your body as you're moving. And then just find that moment that naturally calls stillness back in. Ah. 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 And just have a moment of acknowledgement that just in this little 10, 15 minutes, that there has been a real opportunity to build relationship with yourself that might feel a little bit unique. Everything that we desire begins with relationship. We want to heal a physical, mental, emotional symptom. We want to create more impact in the world. We want to create a loving relationship. We want to be a good parent. We want to fix our hormones, our skin, our whatever, all the things. All of it comes back to relationship. So right now, just notice that you have felt yourself in a way that we don't often do. You've spent some time with yourself where it's truly just about relationship. There's no fixing. We're not counting calories or steps. We're not making ourselves more beautiful according to the beauty standard in any way. We're just hanging out with ourselves, getting to know ourselves. Just a moment of silence, of not quite stillness, but sort of mental stillness with yourself. Finding that intrinsic support, noticing how you're organizing, how you're breathing. Sometimes we can interpret collapse for relaxation, which is why I'm helping you to remember what it really feels like to be supported. For each breath, to help hold you up. And take as long as you need to sort of care for yourself and listen to yourself. We are going to transition into a little bit of processing opportunity, like trying to put this into words that we may understand or feel familiar with Jacqueline. But know that this is also a time for you to really hear yourself and how your body is responding to the information.
You're muted. We can't hear you.
Yes, I was muting myself to give Jacqueline the floor, but Jacqueline got kicked out and she'll be back, hopefully really soon. Okay. All right, guys. Well, Jacqueline will come back on when her internet allows. And my first question, obviously, like each one of those, like I just did a few hour long practice, like a workshop that was sort of based on this framework. This is just like a little taste. But here, Jacqueline's back. Let's see. My question would be just in the beginning, or at this moment, do you feel anything interesting coming through from exploring yourself in that way? You can speak it or
Fair.
drop it in the chat. Yeah, please go for it.
Um, it took me a second to get out of my head and into my body. I just finished like a work day and straight from a client call, I jumped on here. So like there was no integration of like one type of brain to the next. So I was like faking it until you make it, like getting all sexy, but it was really nice because once I did and I got on the floor and I was just like grinding the floor. I was like, oh, like I forgot.
I
Sometimes we
love
need to
that.
just grind the floor, like, and we just don't do that as a normal, like, call to action in our body kind of thing. So that was nice. And then I was able to just like get out of my head and just drop into it. And then I was just like yawning, yawn after yawn after yawn. So it was like, oh, I'm releasing, I'm releasing, I'm releasing. And then just dancing. And so it was just like a really beautiful experience and just like being with myself, the layers from the thoughts of like, oh, I should be making dinner right now, all the way to where I am right now. And I'm like, oh, thank God I just did that. So
Oh, so great. Thank you for sharing that. Caitlin, you said that you were really tired when you started and you feel more energy now.
Yes. I feel, yeah, I've been very tired all day, and it's kind of interesting how just that little bit I feel much more just awake, energized. Some of it felt a little awkward for me, and I think it's good to get out of the kind of like self-imposed, this feels weird, and just kind of do something different. But yeah, I wouldn't say I like completely let loose. There, I still kind of held back a little. So
Yeah, I mean, is it a regular practice for you to get to an edge? Probably, if it's not, then the first time you try or the first handful of times you try, it's understandable that it's not available. But what I really think is interesting is how we perceive tiredness as a lack of energy, right? Like we need more sleep, more food. But I think sometimes it's a lot of trapped energy. And when you have a little moment to move the energy, you actually can really feel so much more energized and alive. And sometimes that like constant tiredness is not telling you you're not eating and sleeping enough. It's telling you you're not moving the energy enough, that you're just, it's too stagnant, too contained. But I'm going to pass it to Jacqueline, and we are going to have a little time to process again at the end and do a little Q&A if you guys want.
Yay. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I had to switch to my phone because of the Wi-Fi. So third headset for the practice. Oh, I love that practice. And Jeannie knows this for those who are on, the movement of Soma Journey is a lot like that. And so I haven't done it in a minute. So I just wanted to say thank you to Amalia for bringing it back in the exploration. So I love that. So what we are going to do now, just for the next 10 minutes or so, is just a brief conversation on the nervous system. And that is really what brings Amalia and I together, how she describes it, how we just experienced it and expressed it. There's so much of that tribal, ancestral like energy and who we are as a species and as a gender and all the things in a physical human body. And then the science, the modern science, which we both have studied, is something that we also believe is important to share, but we might not share it as so mainstream as those that become popular. Having said that, I'm just going to share some terminologies. You may or may not be familiar with some of these words. There's no quiz or a test after this practice, and we're not going to send you a pop-up quiz afterward, but it is just something just to be curious about, because I found it really interesting that there was a science that said, and it gave me an explanation or a reason for how I was or how I felt. And just to add a personal note, like Amalia did, I too have experienced anxiety as of recently. And it was very like familiar feeling that I had experienced in my teenage years. And in my teenage years, it was very easy just to pop some pills. So when I was exploring, knowing what we know and having the resources and the tools, I observed and witnessed that same part who went for the Xanax, the Buspar, and just like, I don't like how this feels. I didn't like it 20 plus years ago, and I don't want to go there again. So I just wanted to share a different experience because I went there just for a couple of days. And then when I was able to like kind of find my baseline, even with the support, which I'm not poo-pooing, I was able to be reminded like, okay, that's not what I needed. And then I was able to process, like Amalia said, and able to go in. And so I just wanted to share that too can be possible for us, when we might need some outside resource, but it's always best, in my opinion, to come back to self. And that is only way I knew how to do that was because of these practices. So I just wanted to share that, and I'm grateful for that. So I just want to take a pause so we could just sit up nice and tall. If you are seated, maybe just do another breath with an exhale and a sigh. You could shrug your shoulders, just wiggle your hips, even swallow once or twice. And another practice I love is just swirling the tongue behind closed lips. A little hum or a sigh with lips closed. Yeah, keep moving if you're moving. And then just like Amaya offered, just noticing what's now. And I want to invite that as the intro to this discussion, because the self-trust was never about us not wanting to be in relationship with ourselves. It was more about the not knowing or the forgetting. And so how do we remember? How do we come back to is through noticing. It's through the sensations. But oftentimes we as women and in our society and the culture we live in, we, like I just expressed in my example, we go to that external or outside source to either make it go away or to numb because we don't want to feel. And all of that is because the way our nervous system has been set up for protection and to feel a sense of safety or to know when there's a real threat around. So I'm going to pause with that because I already threw out some words. And in that moment, just maybe bring your hand to your heart or your abdomen or both, if that felt comfortable for you before, or if it didn't, maybe it does now. And so I just want to acknowledge and recognize that our body has most literally, like in perfect divine intelligent order, been created for us and to keep us safe from harm, real or imagined, because the body doesn't know the difference. So I love that most of you have your eyes closed. And for those watching the replay, if your eyes are closed, keep them there if that's available. Because as we dive in, the sense of awareness inside is interoception. That sensing of your heartbeat. That sense of the breath coming in and going out. That sense that tells you when you need to use the restroom, go to the bathroom. That internal compass that says, I'm hungry or I'm full. The sense of tension and tightness, discomfort, as well as the sense of ease. So just within that range of tension, tightness, and ease, what do you notice now? What's possible for you in this moment? And maybe you have that awareness, and maybe not. It's okay. So often in our life, we have been taught or just been in practice of overriding. So just take a moment and allow. Without the desire or autopilot to change or to fix. Just what am I sensing right now? And again, the capacity that Amaya started to speak to, I'll speak to a little more as well, is the in recognizing that the practice is just that. What do I do now with this information? Or do I need to do anything at all? If it was, I have to go to the bathroom, will you go to the bathroom? Or do you have that habit that I've caught myself in, I'll go later, or I can't now? So that's also part of that self-trust. Giving yourself the space, the allowance to do what is necessary for your health and well-being and peace of mind and heart. And then we just let that slide for a moment, just placing your hands down by your sides or on your lap, or keep them there if that feels more supportive and resourced. And if you are welcome to, if you're inviting yourself to, open your eyes and just blink around the room and maybe just get a sense of the floor underneath you or the seat underneath you. And through the nervous system practices and somatic languaging, we very well know about our senses, the five main senses. And of course, we call our intuition that sixth sense. So just through sight right now, like look around your space. And that's just one portion of the next little bullet for today, because we're not going in too much in depth, is proprioception, right? A better way to test that might be to stand. We don't have to, but if you wanted to stand and balance on one foot or one leg for a moment, if anybody wants to try it, I'm not going to, but you can now or later. And just get that sense, even with, okay, can I stand on one foot? Do I feel safe? And then notice how quickly, if you do, you get wobbly, right? Or is that sense of grounding and centerness, like I'm present, I'm here, and this space around me is okay. If I fall, I'm not going to die. If I fall, I'm not going to get hurt, maybe temporarily. Yeah. So proprioception, where am I in space? So this is that sense of awareness where my body begins and ends. And if we're in relationship with another, it's that proprioception. I'm doing this little movement, right? Like for boundaries. So us being aware of our surroundings, us being aware of our body and the wobbling, right? And the groundedness is like, okay, where do I begin? Where does that person begin? And how can I create the separation if and when necessary for me to feel safe? So proprioception is just another part. And what's interesting I wanted to add, since we're both movement teachers and practitioners of the sorts, my past and my present, as most of you might know, is yoga. And for years, I went to this really hard, really strong vinyasa, Ashtanga vinyasa class, and that's where I learned the word edge. And it was, okay, find your edge. We're in warrior 2 or we're in warrior 3, right? And that edge might have been for me at this one time, or at this time, where my breath, I started to hold my breath. And that was an automatic response, a fear of falling. Or, here's the other fun fact in yoga classes or in performative practices, what's everyone going to think if I fall? Or what's the judgment that I am holding for myself if I fall? I'm shit, I'm a bad yogi, the list goes on, make up your own if you don't have any. But it was because I was trying to explore my edge because the teacher told me so. And so what I love about the yoga practice is my capacity to hold it and still be able to breathe. Still be able to breathe and have a sense of peace, to have the sense of self. So proprioception, edge, right? And then what I love about the new science that supports all of this that Amalia and I have been intuitively feeling is, there's Dr. Stephen Porges and Dr. Dan Siegel. I know there are 2 men, there's lots of women in this field as well, but they have been the ones that have been coined or with the terminology of polyvagal theory, of window of tolerance. So I just want to end this little science class with when we practice awareness, when we practice the movement that we just did with Amalia, when we learn our inner landscape, when we are aware of our outer landscape, we also get to be in relationship with what's called neuroception, which is the Stephen Porges part, where we're trusting that our body can sense things. It's that butterfly feeling in the belly. It's when we get the chills in the skin. I'm safe. I just got the chills as I said that. I'm safe or I'm not safe. It is automatic, ladies. It is we are sitting in a room and we feel somebody walking behind us. If we are sitting in a room and we're not aware of ourself, our interoception or proprioception, we might not sense that person that potentially might be a threat. Just nod your head if that's making sense so far for me. Yeah, okay. And then the last piece, coining from Dr. Dan Siegel, is that window of tolerance. And it's just about, am I in a hyper state? Am I anxious? Am I overthinking? Do I have these racing thoughts? Am I reactive? Or the end of the spectrum, the other end, is the hypo. I'm exhausted. I'm shut down. I'm numbing. So when we know ourselves and we have developed this beautiful art of self-trust, then we get to see and feel, it's the feeling part that we're focusing on, I am in a hyperactive state right now. Get the fuck out of my way because this shit ain't gonna be a good positive outcome. Or I'm in a hypo state. Where are the covers? Turn down the lights. Do not fucking bother me, right? And so if I'm sensing and feeling one of those 2 extremes, and we'll just call them extremes, but allowing ourselves to feel that range of motion that Amalia just alluded to, then we could come back and resource, hand on the heart. How's my heartbeat? Where's my breath? Am I breathing? So just again, interoception, proprioception, neuroception. You could look up more details if you'd like or ask me any questions, right? The capacity is that window of tolerance. Where am I in this range? And then understanding that edge before we go beyond it. Or if we do go beyond the edge, how do I come back to baseline, like Amalia said? So that is what we're here to share, and it all comes back to the relationship with self. And I truly, 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 truly love and believe so deeply in this work. And if you're not a science person, neither was I, and I still don't really claim to be. I just found this stuff really fascinating. And for my logical and my left brain mind, it was, I needed like an anchor to understand myself. And then the other practices came more naturally because I'm a woman and because I'm now in this conversation with women like Amalia. So I hope you all got something out of both of our parts. We're not hanging up just yet. We do want to ask and inquire with you, and you could write it in the chat, or maybe you could unmute in a moment. We could stay on just a couple minutes past the hour unless you need to go. But really, like, how do you know your yeses and nos? Or what is the sense that you feel when there's a big decision that you need to make? And if you have an example, please share if you feel comfortable to. I know I could think of many of when, like, I knew better, right? I knew that I should have maybe done something this way, but instead I did it this way because I had that self-doubt, or because I had the voices from my past, or I had the belief systems from this society, or from a parent or a loved one that overrode my intuition and my internal sense. So either share an example or a way that you know how this works for you, and unmute or write in the chat. Yeah, and there's only a couple of you now, so if you want to unmute, you can, or write in the chat. But I'd love to hear more about your experience with this.
I can share.
Yeah.
I guess when I get excited about something, and it feels right, but like I'm terrified or nervous, there's something in me that just says, like, just jump and do it. And I think I would say 9 out of 10 times it's like good. Then there's something that's in front of me and I feel like nervous or fear, the same energy, but I know it's not good for me. I have a tendency to just say in my head, like, well, just suck it up because you're strong, and this other person or this other situation needs me more than I need myself for myself. And then I just kind of do it. And what I'm choosing now is just to not just go and do that anymore. Yeah, sometimes yes, but like not as many times as I do. So yeah, so that's kind of like the differentiation of like excited and or like nervousness, but like one is like a good thing and there's something in me is like just do it and just jump. Like you'll be caught, or like it's gonna be for your good. And then there's other times where it's like, well, just do it because I feel guilt, or because I feel obligation, or like, well, I'm a stronger person than they are, so I'll just like help usher them into something. What is it called? The martyr, I guess. Yeah.
I think it sounds like you really have a pretty good read on what you know is good for you and what's not, which is a huge, win. Yeah, I mean, I think there that first level of even hearing the yeses and nos, and then there's this next level of the reverence for yourself as the center point for any service you could provide. That does come after, like what you're talking about. It's like, well, you're doing it less. And yes, also we're not hyper individualist, species. So there is going to be some give and take. And it's not always about like, what is perfect for my nervous system in this moment. It's exactly the opposite of that, honestly. Yes, we want to be making choices in service to what we know is for our highest good, because we know then that is for the highest good of the people around us. But also that doesn't mean we're going to be comfortable all the time, or even necessarily be receiving all the time. I think that really building capacity is being able to make that choice mindfully sometimes, but just knowing like how much capacity do you have for that? How much are you giving and how much are you receiving? Can you be in that role of carrying the weight or being uncomfortable in a mindful versus self-sacrificing way? Like, is this for the greater good? Or is this just me being a martyr? But to me, that sounds like extremely like coherent self-awareness, and the dance of how much you do of what. That is the dance that never goes away. That's
And when
That's
I am the
beautiful.
martyr, when I'm done being the martyr, how do I come back to myself and tend to my needs that maybe weren't that had to be put to the side? How do I pick them back up and be with them?
You can
That's what I'm
also
thinking.
rename it. You could just be, I'm a community member. And sometimes that means people need me. And it's
Right.
not martyrdom, because sometimes also I need people. And
Yep.
I think, it's like, and sometimes it's martyrdom. And if you're like, no, that's martyrdom, that may be an easier thing to say no to.
Right.
But I
Right.
think like the
Yeah,
story.
checking in with self. I think that's the whole purpose of this understanding of what's the intention, what's going to be the outcome to best serve, like Amalia just said, the highest good for all.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
I just wanted to add to this like idea that we're, talking about that of, these edges. Like we always think sympathetic, the sympathetic state is bad, right?
Bad
Like we don't want to
parasympathetic
go
state, yeah.
there. But what we just practiced was a sympathetic state on purpose. That is an edge, right? And if you don't fight, you will freeze, right? That will be like the most likely other option. And if we don't want to freeze, then we're going to have to learn how to fight sometimes, right? Sometimes we're going to have to go, so we don't, like be so overwhelmed with the wickedness of the world that we go and under our covers and never come out, right? And so being comfortable in that sympathetic state, being able to like believe ourselves in that state instead of thinking, oh, I'm activated, so this isn't real, right? It's real and it's true. And if we can fight when we need to fight, then it actually allows us to not freeze, and I think that feels like a lot more agency.
Beautiful. Did anybody else want to share or ask any questions? I'm just trying to be mindful of the time here. Anyone else that's on? Yeah, you can unmute or chat. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you so much. This is something that I'm still really working on, like coming home to myself and trusting self in my body in decision making. And the story that I've told myself for so much of my life is that I suck at decisions, I'm indecisive, I over intellectualize, I go back and forth, and I can't even choose what kind of toothpaste to buy. That's the story I've always told myself about me. And I'm just starting to rewrite that, and so I'm just soaking up all of this. So I just want to say thank you so much to both of you.
Oh my God. And thank you so much for sharing that. That has literally been my story. And I've just been processing that. I remember as a teenage girl, I've shared this story now a couple times. I was fortunate enough, my parents or my mom would take me to go get like one or two outfits a few times before a new year started. And I remember at 49 being 12 years old, 14 years old, and the story I learned was because I wanted to return everything. Like I would come home, just as an example, I tried the clothes on, I'm like, I don't want it, I don't like it, whatever. That little girl didn't want it. And because it happened so many times, the memory is my mom said, like, what's wrong with you? We need to take you to a therapist. Like, why can't you decide? And so I've carried that my whole life until recently. And I think I'm older than you, so I'm just rewriting it now, which, time is an illusion and doesn't matter. But I'm in that process too. So thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's a deep one. And my new word is like trust. And that's why Amalia and I came up with this. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Any final words, Amalia?
No, I think that was great. That was great.
I do have one final quote, if you will, just to hand on heart, hand on belly, or take a breath. If you could just remember this one message to leave you with, that self-trust requires presence, and presence requires capacity, and capacity requires the relationship with yourself, with your body, and with your nervous system or safety system. So I wish you all those requirements so that you might find that peace and that sense of self-trust.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you, ladies.
Thank
Love
you.
you guys. See you soon.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful. Really
Thanks for
appreciate it.
coming to me.
Okay.
Bye.
Good night.